everybody. Welcome back to the Covenant Eyes podcast. It is so good to have you joining us. Today, we are interviewing a very special guest who is the feature of a new film coming out by our friends over at Angel Studios. If you like football, if you like faith, and you love a story of redemption, you are going to love this film. It basically is if Rudy grew up, raised a family, and went through a series of personal failures in life, but then at the age of 59 decided to go back and play college football, what would happen? This film is incredible. You are going to love it. And today we are interviewing Mike Flynt, who is actually the person the film is all about. Angel Studios put together an incredible film. We're going to show you a clip of that film, and then we are going to roll right into an interview with Mike Flynt. You are going to love this conversation. Stay tuned.
Football. The greatest game in the history of mankind. It's more than that. It's a shot.
Hello?
At immortality.
I never finished my senior year.
Why not?
I got thrown out for fighting.
You're done!
What kind of a captain gets kicked off his own team? I wish I could go back and do it all over again. I'm eligible.
Eligible for what?
To play?
Every one of you is gonna have to earn a spot on this team.
Just to be clear, there's no hidden camera somewhere?
No one's gonna run over me. I'll guarantee you that.
Okay.
Okay?
Yo, what you listening to, man?
Music? What we used to listen to.
I said now, wait. I like that. I got something to say.
What's up, man? You ready for me, Father Time?
You're out of time, son.
You go ready now.
How are you doing this at your age, man?
He's like a 59-year-old Rudy.
He's my father.
I'm coming for you, old man.
I don't want to watch him break his neck.
If you got hurt, it would destroy every soul on this team.
Why does this one have to be a win?
It's not about winning.
I know why you have to do this, and I'm with you. This game, it's a second chance.
We're not defined by our successes. We're defined by our regrets. And I've had a ton of them. As a teammate, as a husband, as a dad.
I'm so sorry.
Don't let tonight be that first regret.
Will Mike Flynt finally get his name in the history books?
Let's make this a game they'll always remember.
That's you, Flynt.
Hey, everybody. We are so honored to have Mike Flynt joining us to talk about his film that is coming out called The Senior. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks for having me. I'm excited about being here.
Yeah, so the film is kind of about your life story, and I want to hear all about it. So share with our listeners a little bit about who you are, what your story is, and how that inspired the film.
Well, my story is about two different men. One up to age 34 was just part of the world. The man from age 34 to today at 77 is a born-again Christian and, part of another world. And so the overlap of those two lives is reflected in the film. And my dad, I had actually the former CEO of K-Love radio stations
Oh my gosh.
told me years and years ago, he said, this is going to be a movie one of these days. His name was Bill Reeves. He said, this will be a movie because it's about daddy issues.
Yes.
And he said, everybody has them. And so that, for me, it was. I I was raised by a man that loved me very much, but he brought his past experiences from World War II and the D-Day invasion and the Battle of the Bulge into his ideal training of a young man and how he felt like he should act and react in West Texas, where I grew up. And so I had a very violent upbringing, and train up a child, that verse is a double-edged sword. It depending on how you train them up as they get older, they're not going to depart from that. And so I was a good person. I was not a troublemaker, but I became a trouble seeker because I was very good at fighting, and I didn't mind getting hit. I didn't think anybody would hit me as hard as my dad did. And so and in West Texas, you've got the Roughnecks in the oil field, you've got cowboys, and then you've got football. And so if you don't mind fighting, there'll be a lot of opportunities out there. And so that was how my life started out as a young man. My senior year in high school, at Permian High School, we won state championship at the largest schools in Texas. And it was the first time that Permian won a state championship, but it started that winning tradition that inspired the book and the subsequent movie, Friday Night Lights.
Oh my gosh.
So then I received a full football scholarship to Sul Ross State University. And Sul is short for Sullivan. Sullivan Ross was a former governor of Texas. Sul Ross was about 100 miles from the Mexican border down in deep southwest Texas, and I was on full scholarship there. Sul Ross played in the Lone Star Conference, which was one of the premier conferences at that time in the nation. And my sophomore and junior years, I had over 100 tackles each of those years. I had 24 tackles in one game in my junior year. I was an all-conference linebacker. I was the leading tackler on my team, and I was voted team captain. And so coming back from my senior year, the coaches appointed me as to monitor the rooms to make sure everyone was in at curfew. As team captain, I would confront them if they weren't in. A couple of freshmen took exception to me telling them when they could and couldn't come and go, and it got physical, and one of them got hurt. And so the president of the college was called. Dr. McNeil called the head coach, and he had me in his office the next morning. And he told me, he said, I've received a call from Dr. McNeil, and he said that he's heard Mike Flynt's name for the last time. He told me, he said, Coach, it's you or Mike Flynt. Who's it going to be? And he said, Mike, I've got to ask you not to be part of our team this year.
Oh my gosh.
And all the players, they already had them out on the field. They didn't want me interacting with them. And so I asked him, I said, Coach, have you asked my teammates how they feel about this? And he said, I don't have to ask them. He said, I know how they feel about it. He said, but that's why they're out there. I don't want you interacting with them either.
Oh, no.
We've got assistant head coaches in your room packing your things. We want you out of town within the hour. And call my dad. He said, you've got to call him and have him meet us on the highway. We'll take you halfway to Odessa. And my dad said, you've been kicked out for what? And I said, Dad, I got in a fight. And he jumped in and started chewing me out. And I just interrupted him. I said, Daddy, I am exactly what you made me. And he never brought it up again after that date. I went on with my life, received my degree, and met a beautiful young co-ed going to the University of Texas. We fell in love, got married, and we're almost 53 years now that we've been married. And Eileen changed my whole life. She led me to faith in Christ. I became a strength and conditioning coach at the University of Nebraska, University of Oregon, Texas A&M. And I always had a philosophy about my coaching that I would never ask one of my athletes to do something that I wasn't willing to do myself. So I stayed in great shape, helping other people. And I got out of coaching, found out that I still had a semester of eligibility left. Getting kicked off that team had become my greatest regret in life. That team that had so much potential, they went 8-3 the year before when I was a junior. We had everybody back. We were picked to win the Lone Star Conference. They went 4-6-1 after I was kicked out. So I shouldered that responsibility, and I never shared it with anyone. I just, it became my greatest regret in life. And so through happenstance, I found out that I still had a semester of eligibility left. And all those years after I quit coaching, I tell people that not every journey has to have a destination. Mm-hmm. You know, if you've got a dream, move in that direction, do something. And I never quit running sprints. I didn't quit lifting and going through all the athletic things that I had taught athletes to do when I was a strength coach. And so all of a sudden I get an opportunity to try out for a team at 59 years old. I was ready. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was ready. And so by the grace of God, I was able to meet with the head coach. He listened to my story. And then I told him, I said, I'd like to walk onto this team as a linebacker, because I feel like if I can make this team as a linebacker, I can help a bunch of young men that I don't even know, but for me, it makes up for those guys I let down all those years ago. And so I just need a chance to try. And so I got that chance, and by the grace of God, I was able to make that team.
Oh my gosh, what an incredible journey. I want to just kind of pause there for a minute, because that's incredible. I mean, oftentimes in life, we do have these regrets. Before Christ, our life was different. And oftentimes we don't get that chance to go back and to maybe undo or, redo those moments that we were carrying so much shame and guilt about. So this is incredible. So you got to play after all these years, and at the age of 59, that's incredible. So talk to us about the season. What was it like to be back on that field, and having the love of Christ in your heart? How did that change how you played and how you interacted with your teammates?
Well, the interaction with my teammates was it was something special, because they had read all the publicity. I mean, initially I thought, who cares about an old man going back to play college football? Oh man, how wrong I was about that. And so the media showed up in force, and my teammates became so defensive of me. They got real upset when people would call me an old man. Hey, you play at Sul Ross? Is that where that old man's playing? Oh man, they got defensive about that, and so my time with them was super special, because I had played the game at a very high level when I was young, and I'd been blessed in that I was never hurt, and so I didn't have any baggage to bring back with me. And so when we put those helmets on, I went after them, and I didn't expect them to cut me any slack either, and they did not.
That's awesome.
I didn't think there was going to be enough ice in Alpine, Texas to get through two-a-days. I'd never played football in a 59-year-old body before, and oh my gosh, the soreness. I just didn't think there was any way. And as the season wore on and the weather got colder, I couldn't stop. I had to keep moving. And so, but the interaction with my teammates, they could share things with me that they wouldn't share with anyone else. And then they begin to research my past. They begin to look back at when I was at Sul Ross before. And, one of them found out that I was Lone Star Player of the Week and that I'd made 24 tackles in one game. And he said, how did you do that? What would you? And so I was able to share with them the mind games that I'd learned from my dad and things that I did that helped me in football. And so I was able to pass that on to them. And it was, I would get calls from them on Sunday to to come over at so and so's house, to watch the game of the week, the NFL game of the week or something. They wanted me to be there with them, and so it was so rewarding, and just it was everything that I prayed that it might be if God would give me that opportunity, and He did, and I maximized it. I just
That's awesome.
I didn't waste any of it.
That's incredible. And during that time, you were married, you had a family. What was it like for your family as they watched you kind of go through this and relive this experience? What was it like for them?
Eileen, our youngest daughter has just graduated from high school. She's going to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. So Eileen's getting ready for orientation. Our two oldest children are married. They're gone from home. And so we're empty nesters. We decide we're going to downsize and we're going to put our house on the market, and we immediately had a contract on our house. We had 30 days we had to get out. Eileen is involved in all of that.
Yeah.
She's ignoring me. She's thinking, well, the NCAA is going to tell him he's ineligible, or he's going to get down there, that coach is going to laugh him out of his office. Well, I come back from Alpine, and she's got a list of houses for us to go look at. And I said, Eileen, see, I had never shared with her. I had never told anyone the depth of regret that I had over the loss of that senior year and letting those guys down. And she said, we got to be out in 30 days. Michael, this is serious. And I said, Eileen, we're going back to Texas. I'm going back to college. I'm going to play football. And she said, I cannot believe at 59 years old that you want to go back and try to play college football. She said, I feel like I'm married to Peter Pan. And then I realized I'd never shared it with her. And I sat her down and I said, I've lived over half my life with the regret over something that I did. And now Coach is going to give me a chance to rewrite that last chapter in my athletic career. And I said, I may not make the team. I may not make it. But I've got to try. For me to have the opportunity and not try, for me that'd be worse than getting kicked out the first time. And to live the rest of my life wondering, what if I could have made that team? I've got to try. And she said, okay, wow. I never knew. She said, if the shoe was on the other foot, I know that you do the same for me, so let's go play football.
Oh
so,
my gosh.
She got on board. Our children, my daughters, they were, my biggest cheerleaders. My son, not so much. He was more practical. He was saying, Dad, you can't risk this. You can't do, what if you end up in a wheelchair or worse? What about Mom?
Yeah.
And so, we had to deal with that, but he came on board. And so, my family was, they were 100% behind me, and, I couldn't have done it without them, but they were there.
That is incredible. I love that. So how did your story end up becoming this film that Angel Studios and all the rest are involved in? Like, how did you make that leap to getting this on the big screen?
Well, it was, it was one of those things that I was told again and again, this is going to be a movie. There's going to be a book and a movie. And I thought, no, there's no way. That's just not going to happen. And that was never on my radar. For me, it was all about helping those young men, to make up for those guys that I'd let down. Yeah. And so and I have to just tell this part of it because it's not in the movie. 26 of my former teammates from that 1971 team came back to watch me play at homecoming.
Wow.
And we met on the 50-yard line, had a group hug, and they told me, we keep hearing where you said that you let us down all those years ago. We knew that fight wasn't your fault, and we never blamed you for that. And besides, look, because you came back to play, we're all back together again. And so God in His mercy allowed me to receive that forgiveness that I needed from those former teammates to overcome that greatest regret. And so when the movie people started coming in, Mark Chiardi, Secretariat, Miracle on Ice, The Rookie, Invincible, all those great sports movies, he came back and he told me, he said, this this has got to be on the big screen. And so that started a journey that, again, it's been 18 years, but it's one of those things where when you've never prayed for something like that, you never asked God for something like that, and it just comes along as kind of a bonus for the other things that he's answered for you, then you embrace it. And so I wanted to do everything I could. And so, one thing I did when the studios sent me the contract, my attorney said, this is great, this looks good. I said, okay, I want you to add a clause in this contract that they will not take the Lord's name in vain, and they will not use the name of Jesus in a disrespectful manner. And he said, Mike, you're going to blow this deal. And I said, why? And he said, because this is Hollywood. You're taking away their creative license when you do that. And I said, well, put that in the contract. He called me back and he said, they signed it. He said, man, They signed it. They're ready to go. And so, it's a PG film. There is no language in it. For the most part, it's true. There are some things in there that are Hollywood, but for the most part, it's a true story.
That is incredible. I love that. And you've got some pretty incredible actors and actresses that are in the film. So who was actually cast as you in this film?
Well, Michael Chiklis.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, The Thing or The Shield, the TV series, And hey, this guy was amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it just, I couldn't believe we were there for the whole filming. Eileen and I were there for the 52 days that they filmed the movie. And a lot of interaction with so many of the people. There were probably 150, 180 people total all around during this process moving, and it was filmed during football season, and so we had 5 different stadiums that we had to jockey between because games and things were going on, practices. So the whole group, Mary Stuart Masterson playing Eileen, and she was incredible. Rob Corddry plays the coach, the whole cast. We have so many young actors that Michael Chiklis was mentoring these young actors, but you're just the performance that these young actors make. It's incredible. We were so impressed. Oh my gosh, it was just amazing. And so we are so pleased with Angel Studios, everything that they've done, the actors that were involved, and the effort that they put forth. It was, for us, it was a God thing, the whole thing.
That is incredible. And I love the fact that this movie is really a story that so many are going to relate to and maybe even be able to see the story of redemption and the story of forgiveness and our Lord and Savior through the film. Because, I mean, people that are not Christians may go see this film, and it is so moving that they're going to walk away feeling something. And I'm sure your hope is to lead people to Christ that don't have a relationship with him. And
Amen.
how does it feel to know that you may have that kind of impact through this film, through your story, and being willing to share that with the world?
Oh, that would be a dream come true. When I went back to play, there was so much publicity, and men would walk up to me. It was mostly men, sometimes women, and they would recognize me, and the men would offer to shake hands and say, "Are you Mike?" And I'd say, "Yeah," and I'd have to ask them their name. They'd tell me their age. I'm 62 or I'm 57, and so they'd start telling me about things that they were doing because I was following my dream and my heart. And so they were thinking, hey, if Mike can do that, so can I. And
That's
so
amazing.
at every opportunity, I would try to share my faith. And, I just wanted people to know, because so many people have regrets in life, and you can't change the past. I knew that I couldn't go back and undo what I had done. But for me, I could change the meaning of that past by doing something positive for those young men that I didn't know and helping them. For me, it was a substitute for those guys that I let down. And so I was able to focus on helping someone right now, today, to make up for what I'd done in the past. And God honored that. And as I said, I received the forgiveness from those former teammates that they just put it over the top. And so,
That's beautiful.
Yeah, the whole story, is Christ-centered, but it's done in such a way that I hope millions of non-Christians go see it because everybody loves football.
Yes, yes.
and so it's just a great backdrop, and they're going to love the acting in it. It's amazing.
It's incredible. When does the film come out so people can get their tickets and preview the film?
September 19th, and thousands of theaters all over the nation. So
awesome.
September 19th, The Senior.
The Senior. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for sharing your story, your testimony. I know so many are going to be reached with this film and hopefully inspired, led to the Lord, and just leaving the film like a good, wholesome story that really just, I think is going to move people's hearts and maybe, give some people some inspiration that they need to do something maybe they thought they never could do. I'm so excited for this film to come out. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, Karen, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you to all of our listeners for joining this episode of the Covenant Eyes podcast. Take care. God bless.